Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me again. It's truly a pleasure to be back into the village. I'm your host, Kim Jordan, and welcome to the village. As always, I do want you to interact, to comment. When you come in, please let me know where you're from and, say hello. We have a awesome show today. A very old friend of mine will be coming on, and I just am super excited about him being with us here in the village. Before I introduce him, I do want to say that it looks like things are starting to open up around the world, and this COVID-19 situation may or may not be over. But on a personal note, I do want to admonish you to, really take this time to be more safe and not take this thing lightly just because things are opening up. Continue to protect yourself and to protect your family. That's definitely critical. And if you know someone that's been affected by COVID, by all means, reach out to them and make sure they're okay. Clearly, they're experiencing a hardship that was pretty much unexpected. So definitely want to make sure that I do communicate that. And without any further delay, most of you who've been with me for this first season know that James Gilmer was with us before. And so he is he's not a stranger to the show. And I'm just super excited about having him back. I want you to give him a warm welcome, village, and put your hands together at your house. I'll do it here for my dear friend, Mr. James Gilmer.
Kim, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming back. I appreciate it. You're going to be speaking with us about HBCU and college admission. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Oh, okay, awesome. And so everyone does not know what HBCU stands for. And so can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, HBCU stands for Historical Black Colleges and Universities. And so, most of them was established over 80 to 100 years ago when people of color couldn't be admitted into some of the traditional universities.
Okay, awesome. And so with that being the history of the colleges, is that still the culture now? Is it still primarily for African Americans, or can everyone attend?
No, over the last probably 15, 20 years, HBCUs have become more diverse. And so now, depending on where a student applied to, those schools can be diverse up to 20 to 30% of people of other ethnicities, as well as their counterparts.
Oh, okay. Now, honestly, I wasn't aware of that. So, so thank you so much for sharing that. Why do you think that HBCUs would be a college of choice for anyone versus another college?
Well, interesting enough, some of these HBCUs have become more prominent over the last 5 to 10 years, number one. Number two, you have the first African-American vice president who went to Howard University. And so, that's just elevate, Howard now. And then these schools give you an opportunity to interact with your professor. The size of the classrooms are much smaller. They're more prominent now if you graduate from some of these universities and everything else. And so, their doors are always open to young, bright individuals who want to make a mark for themselves in the real world.
Okay. Now, you did mention that the classes are smaller. Is that intentional, or is that standard across the gamut of colleges?
Yeah, actually, for HBCUs, that's intentional. They have a limit of how many students they will admit into the university, so they can keep the classroom size to a minimum, and so you can have that true interaction with your professor. Courses that you can take that would help you again enhance your skill sets moving on into the real world. So I mean, it was helpful for me going to an HBCU and having that interaction because again, I needed that guidance in my freshman and sophomore year. So
Okay. Okay. And maybe it prevents the students from getting lost in the sauce because there's so much activity.
that is correct. A great point because again, you go to one of these bigger universities where you get lost and everything else, and then your only activity might be something outside of the university. And by the end of the year, you're looking at your grades from the credentials or from the curriculum, and you see that you didn't do well as compared to, having your professors at the HBCU saying, I missed you in class on Tuesday. I missed you in class on Thursday. Well, let me call your parents and let them know that you've missed. I mean, you get that kind of interaction. So, I mean, and so you don't get that with some of the bigger universities, traditional schools and everything else.
Okay. So there's a different level of accountability.
Most definitely.
Awesome. Awesome. And so I do know, I don't know a whole lot. So I need you to kind of give me some details that you work with various colleges. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I worked with at least 50 to 80 of the HBCUs through one of my clients, which we do the Black College Expo in 13 cities. We're doing them virtually now due to the pandemic. But with these universities, we had an opportunity to build relationships with the admission office, with the president of the universities. We have helped them increase enrollment at these schools and everything else. And so we're pretty pleased and proud of our impact to these schools. And again, these schools are wonderful, wonderful institutions, and any student should be proud to be accepted at any of those schools.
Oh, awesome. And so you mentioned you said the Black College Expo?
Yes.
And tell me a little bit more about that. I mean, that might be something that we just might need to give a shout out and inform people that that's actually a source.
Right. Well, the Black College Expo started 21 years ago in Los Angeles to give students more exposure and visibility to HBCUs. We now go to 13 cities throughout the United States. You get accepted on the spot by a college. You get scholarship money that we help you get. And we usually see between 5 to 20,000 kids, depending on the marketplace that we do these expos in. Now that we have to go virtual, we are having these expos starting in, I think, October of this year. If you need if your audience need any additional information, they can come to or send me an email via james.gilmer@jwgandassociates.com, or they can go to www.collegeexpo.org.
You said that's collegeexpo.org.
That's correct.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So as these young people get prepared for college, what can they do? Like what tests are required and how can they best prepare themselves?
Well, I would tell any young person in the 11th or 12th grade to make sure that they take the pre-SAT to really get a better understanding what will be on the SAT when they take it, to send with their other credentials for admission to these universities. Also, I would have to tell them not just the SAT or the pre-SAT, but also take the ACT. That's another test for colleges that they look at. But let me be clear: some of these colleges are going away from both of those type of testing and just looking at your credentials in high school, what kind of community service you've been involved in, what kind of activities you were involved in school and everything else. So those tests are being diminished It all depends on the university and everything else. But right now, 80%, 85% of the universities still look at those as a guideline to accept the young people into their colleges.
Okay. Okay. Um, this might be a question that's kind of out there, but how important is their social media when they're applying for these colleges?
You know what? A great question. And I wish parents would be asking those questions and monitoring their social media platforms, because that's critical. I mean, that is extremely critical to know the characteristic of that individual that is applying to the university. And so, again, if you're showing certain behavior on social media, you might not get accepted to the school that you've been wanting to go to for 10, 15 years. I mean, again, any parent that's listening, please start monitoring your kids' social media platforms, because, again, anything derogatory that's on there that the university might see that might not be beneficial to them, enhancing the school reputation or the school brand, they will not admit your kid to that university.
That is a critical, just kind of doing a sidestep. When I was recruiting, we looked at their social media as well, because as you said, they're coming into a culture, and we definitely don't want to bring, certain types of characteristics into the environment. So that's awesome. And so talk to me a little bit about some of the scholarships and grants that are available.
You know, again, there's so much money that's out there, and it all depends on, the particular path that the young person wants to take. I mean, the U.S. Army is our biggest sponsor for the Black College Expo. They have so much money to give to these young people. They help them go through college, as well as their commitment for 4 years in the armed service. Again, that to me, that's a venue or avenue that any kid should take a look at, number one. Number two, there's all these, not just these universities that's giving money, but all these corporations, all these nonprofit organizations, Thurgood Marshall and UNCF. There is a slew of companies that's out there that's willing to help students, get their education and everything else, especially if their parents can't afford. And that's a whole different topic that we could talk about one day as well, that their parents can help them because they started late saving and everything else. But again, these young people who's listening, or these parents that's listening, utilize my organization, utilize the collegeexpo.org. We help students find money for college, and not just for money for college, but also if you're going away to school, if your parents can't help you return back home for the holidays and things like that, we will help you in that effort as well.
Awesome. That is phenomenal. I was not aware of that at all. Is there a certain location or a certain place that you suggest that they start looking for these monies, or how early should they start looking for scholarships and things of that nature?
You know what? They should start the same time that they're applying to colleges. That's when they should start looking for this money and everything. And I would encourage them to do a Google search of the top 50 or 100 companies who's giving scholarships to incoming students, and start there. I mean, with this process, it's not, these companies are just not giving away money just to give it away. You have to, put together an essay. You have to, talk about your community involvement. I mean, there's a number of things that need to take place in order for you to be selected in order to get this money. And this money doesn't come to you directly. I mean, you usually go to the university or maybe to your parents. And so it doesn't go to the kid directly, and it helps them, again, with books, room and board, tuition, the whole gamut of going to college.
Okay, that's good to know. And I know that there's some sort of a mentorship program, and in that mentorship program, if you can speak to that, will that mentor help them with getting qualified for these scholarships? How's that work?
Most definitely. And I would recommend these young people, go to their organizations like Big Brother, Big Sister, YWCA, YMCA. There's other organizations, community organizations in their towns or in their cities that they can tap into, that these people will help them and guide them through this process. Look, let me just be transparent. My parents didn't go to college, so I had to kind of maneuver by myself. And I would hate to see young people go through that process and everything else, because it's different today. I mean, you have everything available to you. And so you need to utilize those resources that's out there for you.
And it can be overwhelming. So thank you so much for sharing that. It sounded like you were getting ready to say something.
No, I was just going to say, because, if you put the responsibility on your parents who have not gone to college, they don't know. I mean, we see these individual parents or parent who come to our expos that just don't know, and no fault of their own. And this whole college thing, from being prepared, taking tests, trying to find money, trying to apply, it could be taxing. It's expensive, because none of these colleges are accepting applications without money being attached to it. I mean, and so, I mean, it's really tough. And, just take your time, ask for help. If you have neighbors or friends, just reach out to them, because this is a process. It's a true process.
Okay. I want to see if there's any questions. I don't want you to be here and not let let people take advantage of the fact that you are a well of information. And but until if we don't see any, of course, I always have one for you, Mr. Gilmer.
I know. Okay. Before you ask that question, though, let me
Okay.
also say, tap into fraternities and sororities. Again, I'm in a fraternity. We look for the young people to help and everything else, and so we're willing to do whatever it takes to, increase enrollments, especially people of color, to increase enrollment, because we want to close the wealth gap, the educational gap, and everything else. And in order to do that, to me, it starts with education.
Mm-hmm. Are there specific fields of interest that are in high demand?
Most definitely. I would say computer science is still number one to me. The healthcare industry, most definitely STEM, science, technology, education, mathematics, anything in that field. You can step into and hit the ground running. There's some of the other things, like marketing is still viable in this country. What else is out there? There's a number of different. I would think that whatever the young person might be interested in, they need to then pursue and look at what might be available that spark that interest. And so
Okay.
I would recommend them understanding what they want to do before they get to college, so they can take advantage of all that's available to them when they're there.
Okay, that's definitely good advice. And I feel like the way that the world is going now with artificial intelligence, being able to tap into that industry as well. I do know that a lot of people are laid off and their jobs will not be coming back.
Right.
So, looking into the future and seeing what's going to be a viable skill set. I don't know if artificial intelligence falls under computer science or what have you, but you're right. Again, that's definitely something that is going to always be, the programming portion of it going to be in demand for sure.
Right. And if any parent out there that's listening, and if your kid is wonderful in mathematics, science, you need to hone in on those skills now and get them into certain type of classes, help them understand that they have a true gift, gift, and lead them into, that type of, environment where technology is really driving everything today. And so, I would be, again, I would be remiss if I didn't encourage these young people who have that skill set to really look at something bigger than what they can really do with science and technology.
Okay, and so let's speak to that a little bit, because we do know that there are lots of children out there right now that are gifted in certain areas. And
Right.
so how would you suggest that a parent nurture that gift in the child? Like, what would they like, homeschool, or would they, outside of doing extra classes that their school may or may not offer, how do they kind of nurture that and, let it grow?
Yeah, there's certain programs, after school programs that are out there. I know of one that help young people strengthen their mathematics skills and everything else. I can't think of the name of the company right now. And there's other after school programs that you have to pay a certain fee for your young person to be able to take those additional courses outside of the school system. But those are the type of entities that would help these young people really take their skills to the next level.
Okay. Perfect. I see we have quite a bit of activity in the comment section. This is definitely a phenomenal topic, especially what's going on in the world today. James, I am so grateful for you coming back and being a guest on Conversations with Kim. I'm not quite sure what else we could talk about, but I want to have you back for sure.
Well, you know what? I want to come back because I want to talk to your viewers about financial responsibility. And again, when we talk about closing this wealth gap outside of education and some other things, we need to be more astute when it comes to financial responsibility. And I want to talk to your viewers about that and everything else. So, maybe in the next 4 weeks or 5 weeks, you can have me back, but we can, talk about the preliminary conversation, what that would look like. But that is critical. That is also critical to the success of these young people as well. Instead of spending your hard-earned money that you make from your part-time job on, name brand sneakers and everything else, a percentage of those resources should be going into the bank or saving in an annuity or something like that. But I would love to have 30 minutes to talk to your viewers about that.
Awesome. Well, you can just go ahead and put a pin in that one, because I would love to have you back. And I'm sure the village feels the same way. Any final words before we move to before we, go?
Now, one last thing. I mean, education is key. And even if you have a young person in your household that you don't think is living up to his or her expectations, there are some of these colleges that would take a chance on that individual with some parameters that they have to exceed in order to go to the next year and everything else. Please don't give up on these young people and everything else. I mean, they might start blossoming a little later than some. And so take a chance. Again, there's some universities that will take a chance on them. We need for these parents to take a chance on these kids too.
That's phenomenal. Thank you so much. And the village, you will see him again for sure. Thank you so much, James. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. I'll talk to you.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Listen, village, we are growing. We are talking about topics that are relevant, that are today's on the minds of many people. If you have any suggestions for a topic, by all means, put that in the comments. I will find a professional. I will find someone and bring them to you for sure. Mr. Gilmer is a professional with 20 plus years in the industry, and he is very involved in the community and very involved with building young people up. So thank you so much for being with me. Totally appreciate it. And I just want to say, don't forget, silence creates distance, but conversations with Kim builds the village. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.